بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه ثم أما بعد. To proceed, we started last time to talk about family harmony, and we said that it is extremely important, not only because the family is a unit in the structure, or the basic unit in the structure of the community or society, and the well-being of the family is very important for the well-being of the society, the community, and the ummah at large. But before that, Islam came for our individual salvation, our individual survival, our individual welfare. The harmony within the family is extremely consequential to the individual well-being. Your own well-being is very dependent on harmony within the family, and everybody who's married must know that. Whether you are the male or the female, the man or the husband or the wife, you must know that your well-being is very dependent on the harmony that you have at home with your spouse and your children, but primarily your spouse. Because if you and your spouse are a good team, then you will know how to conquer the children, how to handle the children. And sometimes the children could give you both trouble, but you still have a supporter, you still have someone to confide in, you still have someone to rely on for comfort and for support with your task of bringing up children in these times. We said that there are certain principles that we have to be cognizant of, and there are certain practical tips. There are certain things that we should be doing to bring about this harmony. But before those practical tips, it is very important that we are aware and cognizant of the principles that will bring about harmony. Certain principles, if we believe in them, if we correct our understanding of them, they'll bring about harmony to the family. We mentioned 2 of 4 principles in the last time. Remember them? The first one was about being concerned with your purpose of existence. Being primarily and mostly concerned with your purpose of existence, your cause. Why are you here? What are you here for? And if you're truly aware of what you're here for, that you're here for the worship of Allah, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, I have not created the jinn and ins but to worship me, and that you are here for a limited time period. It starts at a certain point, ends at a certain point, and between the point of start and the point of end, there is a certain number of inhalations and exhalations, breaths that you will take in and that you will take out, and it's a predetermined number. And once your number is done, you're out. You're not here anymore, and your time is over. And if you're truly aware of this, and you're truly aware of how consequential that journey is in this life, this phase of your existence, which is just one phase of your existence. You existed prior to it, in the alam al-ruh, and the phase of the spirits, and then the phase of the ajinna, the rahim, inside the womb of your mother, and then you have this worldly phase, and then you have hayat al-barzakh, or your life in the grave, and then you have the hereafter, the everlasting life. If you're aware of how consequential this phase to the next and the one after, which is the eternal and the everlasting, you will be extremely stingy with your time and effort to waste it on disputation with anyone. Really, with anyone, not just your spouse, with anyone. You're on a mission, and you have a focus. And so we talked about this last time, and we also talked about something else, which is the importance of discharging your obligations before you're asked for your rights, which is unlike what most of us are inclined to doing. Most of us are inclined to basically claiming all of our rights before we discharge our obligations. So the Prophet ﷺ was asked about this, and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud tells us that he said, تُؤَدُّونَ الَّذِي عَلَيْكُمْ وَتَسْأَلُونَ اللَّهَ الَّذِي لَكُمْ. You discharge your obligations, تُؤَدُّونَ الَّذِي عَلَيْكُمْ. You do that which is upon you, your obligations, your wajibat, and then you ask Allah for your huquq, and then you ask وَتَسْأَلُونَ اللَّهَ الَّذِي لَكُمْ. And then you ask Allah for your rights. So your rights upon your wife. You ask Allah for your rights upon your wife. You ask Allah for your rights upon your kids, your co-workers, your classmates, after you have discharged your obligations. And that is the second principle that is extremely important. So if you prematurely seek your rights before you discharge your obligations, you know that it is your fault, that you're not getting your rights because you have not fulfilled your obligations yet. The third issue that is extremely important to have a good understanding of, which we didn't talk about last time, is the issue of qiwama and what qiwama means. الرجال قوامون على النساء بما فضل الله بعضهم على بعض وبما أنفقوا من أموالهم. Men have a position of leadership over women, a position of qiwama. And qiwama is not just leadership, but if you want to look for a translation, that is a reasonable translation. But we will detail what this word means, because it is important to understand the full spectrum, the full scope of the implications of this word. You know, الرجال قوامون على النساء, men have a position of leadership over women, بما فضل الله بعضهم على بعض, because of what Allah had favored some of them over others, or favored them over the women. وبما أنفقوا من أموالهم, and because of their spending of their wealth, because I made them, Allah is saying, I made them responsible for their wives, then I must give them, obligations and rights. They have to come hand in hand, hand in glove, as they say. So if you burden someone with obligations, you have to extend some rights to them. If you elect someone to become a president, there has to be some presidential rights. If he's responsible for the failures, he has to have some rights to do things right, to be the decision maker. Otherwise, you can't hold me responsible for the failures without being able to make the right decisions. And the same applies to, the captain of the ship, the pilot and the co-pilot. The pilot is ultimately responsible. So if he's not the final decision maker, how could you make him ultimately responsible for the safety of his plane, ship, country, company, if he's a CEO? I mean, can you have two equally powerful CEOs in control of the same domain? It doesn't work. People have come to realize that this does not work in any institution, in any structure, in any administration. It does not work. The same applies to the family. Do you think the family is different? Do you think the family encounters less challenges than a ship or a plane or a company or a country? The family encounters so much challenges. So qiwama here has to be understood. We should not water it down. We should not water it down. We should not say that qiwama only means that he's maintainer or sustainer, that he is a caretaker, that he's responsible to provide for the family, but he does not have any position of leadership. Because that is, if that is not biased, then I don't know what biased is. If that is not, basically irrational, then I don't know, what is irrational. If you hold someone responsible and you don't give them the tools and means to discharge their obligations or to perform their work, then you're unfair. And this injustice is unbefitting of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then we should not water it down. There is some leadership role here that is given to the husband, because at the end of the day, if there is not one decision maker, final decision maker, then if there is not a final decision maker and you have two people equally powerful in control of the same domain, which is family, then this unit is bound to rupture, to break down, to break apart. It's bound to doing this, unless you have two people that are in complete harmony all the time and have no problem whatsoever all the time. How rare is that in the real world? It's extremely rare. So until someone basically yields to the other, it is not going to work. It is not going to work. Because let's say, someone wants to move to Arkansas and the other one wants to move to Washington, D.C. I mean, you can't move to Arkansas. This is one unit. I mean, if you're bachelors and you want to move to Arkansas, she wants to move to Washington, D.C., fine. Everybody does what they want. But in order for this unit to remain united, you just have to decide, Washington, D.C. or Arkansas. And if there is no process for making that decision, that has been defined, designated by the divine, then it will be up for grabs. Then we will be fighting. Who makes that decision? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spared us from this, saved us from this, continuous fighting. And He said that I gave the position of qiwama, after the husband had listened enough to his wife, after he had considered her input, after he had, given thought and justice to her counter argument, then if they will have to move to one place, then he will make that decision. He will make that decision. But there are some basically qualifications for this. And there are some subtleties also. But before we talk about the prerequisites for this and the subtleties of this position, we have to be also aware that qiwama comes from the same root word as qayyum. What does qayyum mean? Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyul qayyum. What does qayyum mean? Maintainer. So Allah is the qayyum as-samawati wal-ard. He is the maintainer of as-samawati wal-ard. He is the maintainer of the heavens and the earth. So qiwama is not only about leadership. It is also about service. It is also about sustaining, maintaining, looking after, taking care of your family. So qawwam, qawwam also comes from the same root word as qama yaqumu, which means stood up. Stood up. Do you know what? Oh, this is the one that. Okay, so qawwam is. It comes from. It's like he's constantly standing. Do you know what that means? That he's constantly looking after the interest and the well-being of his family. So he's always standing. It's like a servant who's always standing by the master. Just in case the master wants like a glass of water, or move this or that. So he's constantly standing. So the husband is constantly standing, like looking after the interest of his own family. Isn't that a hard job? Wouldn't that require some reciprocity, like some basically authority to be given to him, or rights to be given to him, to discharge his obligations and fulfill his role and perform his task with perfection as the caretaker of this unit? Certainly yes. So it is the sustainer, it is the caretaker, it is also the leader. However, so what I'm trying to say is that our sisters need to understand that the qiwama is not only about service. Otherwise, if it is only about service, why would anyone want to be married? Just like, why would anyone would want to be looking for his master? That he will be their servant for forever, and then he will have no rights in exchange for this, responsibility that he will be burdened with. So the sisters will need to understand this. The brothers at the same time will need to understand that this position of leadership is not a position of dictatorship. And the good leaders are the leaders that lead from behind. The leaders that give enough room for, their team. This family is like a team. So you're given enough room for members of the team. Otherwise, if you are the sort of tyrannical, authoritarian leader, people will just get sick of you, and then they will rebel. They'll naturally rebel. Particularly when you're dealing with someone who is your counterpart, your spouse. She is not your child. She is your spouse. So she is in great ways your equal. And she had just left her parents' home to sort of have her own independence and autonomy, and to have her own home. And if she's just moving from her parents' home to find another father or another parent at the new home, that could be difficult to accept and to live with. So as the leader, the best thing that you could do for the efficacy of your leadership is to not abuse it, is to save it. Save it for when you truly need it. Like I said, there were many examples that I gave last time. If where should we put the couch? In the living room. Why do you think that this is consequential, or this is extremely important, to the well-being of your family? Let the couch be wherever she wants. So if you're interfering with small decisions of that nature, you will be spending from your political asset. You will be spending from your sort of repository of leadership, and you will just vanquish it. When the time comes for an important decision to be made, you will have drained her dry. She will have gotten sick of you and tired of your dictatorship. And then she will rebel, and then she will be defiant to the decisions that you made, where you actually need her cooperation and you need her sort of to yield to you. All of this is extremely important for us to have a good understanding of this position of Qawama, and to have no extremism, neither from the side of the sisters nor from the side of the brothers. And keep in mind also that this whole discourse is quite difficult for our sisters who grew up in the West, because whatever they are hearing is completely different from this. The concept of Qawama itself is completely different from the mainstream culture, where they're not hearing about this. The reason why we need to highlight in these matters is that they are very essential for the survival of the family structure, and the well-being of the family is extremely, particularly for a minority like ours. The family harmony, the well-being of the family, the cohesion of the family is essential for survival, is essential for the survival of the progeny, our posterity. And if that is lost, then everything else is lost. So political correctness here should not prevent us from saying the truth and preaching the truth, because not saying the truth will be detrimental. The next issue that is important also, the next principle that we have to be aware of is the innate differences between the two genders, males and females, and between different individuals of the same gender. Just individual differences and gender differences. And sometimes also there are cultural differences even within the same culture. Do you think that, if you're Palestinian, do you think that there is no difference between the West Bank and Gaza in terms of culture? There are some differences. Do you think that all people from Gaza, they have the same exact culture? Do you think that there are no subgroups in Gaza of different cultures and different understanding different socioeconomic, not necessarily levels, but groups. It doesn't have to be stratified like this, groups. And you're all coming from just this little tiny place. And you have differences. So cultural differences, individual differences. Aren't you different from your siblings? Sometimes the difference between siblings could be stark, could be enormous. How siblings that grew up in the same household and they are of the same gender and they're extremely different. So when you get married, you have to be ready for like those extreme differences. You will find someone that is very different from you, that thinks very different from you, that have a different set of values, or not a different set of values in the sense that she doesn't honor the values that you are. You could be honoring the same set of values. However, you prioritize different values in different ways. She prioritizes certain values over others, and the same applies to you. That is why the Prophet ﷺ said, لا يفرق مؤمن مؤمنة إن كره منها خلق رضي منها الآخر. A believing man should never hate a believing woman. If he hates some of her qualities, he will like others. If he hates some of her qualities, لا يفرق مؤمن مؤمنة, means a believing man should never hate a believing woman. إن كره منها خلقا, if he hates some of her qualities, رضي منها الآخر, he must like others. So that would be extremely important, because keep in mind that there are no angels here on earth, and in order whomever you're going to marry will not be an angel and will have some bad qualities, not just different qualities, bad qualities, because you have bad qualities. And unless you are aware that you must have bad qualities, even if you don't see them, even if you don't recognize them, but unless you're humble enough to know that you must have bad qualities, because it's a mixed baggage. You are a mixed baggage. We are, human beings are a mixed baggage. We have the good and the bad, the virtue and the vice within us, and we have some bad qualities. Unless you have purified yourself and you are, Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman, some people, you're Abu Dharr and Abu Darda and all of those people, Salman. If you think of yourself this way, that's a different story. But unless you are one of those, you have to really know that you have some real bad qualities. So whatever bad qualities you see in your spouse, just keep in mind that you must have some. They may not be the same, but there will be some. So if you want her or him to forgive, to pardon, to overlook your bad qualities, you must reciprocate. You must do the same thing. لا يفرق مؤمن مؤمنة إن كره منها خلقا رضي منها الآخر. Everybody memorizes this hadith? Repeat it. لا يفرق مؤمن مؤمنة. لا يفرق. فرق means hated, disliked, resented, أبغض. يفرق is the present tense of فرق. So لا يفرق مؤمن مؤمنة. لا يفرق مؤمنة إن كره منها خلقا إن كره منها خلقا رضي منها الآخر. Okay, this is an authentic hadith reported by Muslim from Abi Hurairah radiallahu anhu. Do you know when the Prophet ﷺ said, استوصوا بالنساء خيرا فإن المرأة خلقت من ضلع وإن أعوج شيء في الضلع أعلاه فإن ذهبت تقيمه كسرته وإن تركته بقي على عوج. So when the Prophet ﷺ said, be good to women, for women were created from a bent rib, and the most bent part of the rib is the top of it. The top of the rib is the most bent of it. So be good to women. If you attempt to straighten it, you break it. and if you leave it, it stays bent. So a lot of times people say, polemics or apologetics, they want to apologize for the hadith, but you don't really need to apologize for the hadith. You just need to explain it, to clarify what it means. She was meant to be like this. You may, it is actually, some people actually think that, some people, people that are into behavioral medicine, they think that women think in curves, loops, not straight lines. To put your emotions above your reasoning is a virtue for women, because to be a mother, you need to put your emotions above your reasoning. When everybody gives up on your child, you need to be behind that child. You need to be supporting that child when everybody else give up on them, even their father. If this child is a wicked child that is abusing you, you are the last sort of hope for this child to find any comfort or to put their trust in anyone of this of mankind, of humanity. The mother will be the last, hope. And if this mother gives up on the child, because logically you should give up, reason says that this is a wicked child and you should just give up. This is a child who's abusing you, so logic says to the father, this kid, I'm done with him. I'm clear of him. I have nothing to do with him. The mother will continue. You see, do you see how the mother will be able to spend the entire night by her child who's screaming and crying, and she just stays up the entire night, and it is as if, she's not aggravated by this. She's extremely compassionate still, and so on. Let a father stay with his crying baby for 2 hours and see what they do. And so maybe it is, and that's why the Prophet said, if you try to straighten it, you break it, because it is not meant. This rib, if it was flat, would it do its job? It wouldn't do its job. It is meant to be bent. So the only thing that the Prophet ﷺ is saying here is that they are different. And the different is very, basically, it's a strong difference. It's a clear difference. So when you get married, be sure that you show respect to those differences, and do not try to make her a copy of you. This is a hadith that is very favorable for women. This is a hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ started by saying, "Stawsu bin-nisa'i khayran," be good to women. When you marry her, don't try to make her think like you, act like you, behave like you, because she is not meant to be like you, because if she is like you, you will not complement one another. You cannot complement one another. In order for you to complement one another, she would have to be different to complement you within this family structure. Okay, I know, oftentimes people just get bored of talking about the principles. So some of the practical tips. One of the most important practical tips, when we talked about the purpose of your existence, if you're aware of the purpose of your existence, you will not have time to waste on disputation. But knowing the purpose of your existence is extremely important. And what is even more important for the harmony, inside the family is the commonality of purpose, is that you're both on the same page, is that you both agree on the purpose of your existence. She and you, he and you, you both are in agreement. We're just here for a short time in this life to please Allah, to worship Allah, to please Allah, to take care of our kids, and then we will die. Maybe we will die when we, past 60 or 50 or before that, or we don't know. This will come suddenly. So for this short time that we're here on earth, taking care of our business, let's just help one another on this. This commonality of purpose will be realized if you do things together. That's why the Prophet ﷺ in a hadith reported by Imam Ahmad in his Musnad said, رحم الله رجلا قام من الليل فصلى وأيقظ أهله فإن أبت نضح في وجهها الماء ورحم الله امرأة قامت من الليل فصلت وأيقظت زوجها فإن أبى نضحت في وجهه الماء. So may Allah have mercy on a man who wakes up at night to pray, and he wakes his wife up, and if she refuses, he sprinkles water in her face. And may Allah have mercy on a woman who wakes up at night to pray and wakes her husband up to pray, and if he refuses, she sprinkles water in his face. You have to do it gently, otherwise some people are quite aggressive. But extremely important to do things together, to come to the masjid together, to go places together, to do activities together, to take care of orphans, or pass out food, charity, this and that, to have commonality of purpose. We are on this journey together. We are on the same bus. We've got to stay together, and we've got to do things together. That will bring about a lot of unity and a lot of harmony. It is of extreme importance. Otherwise, if everyone has his own mind in a different place, it becomes very hard. Very hard. You don't give up though, because as we said before, divorce is the work of the shaitan. As we said, hadith is reported by Muslim radiallahu anhu. Then the second thing that is, the second practical tip, and those practical tips are not arranged in order of importance, even though the first one is particularly important, but from here they are not arranged in order of importance. But the second thing is the importance of looking good, and this is really important, particularly for the brothers, because sometimes, for the sisters and the brothers. And because I say particularly for the brothers, because sometimes the brothers feel that this is the work of the sisters, that they need to look good, I don't have to, she needs to look good and to beautify herself for me, and I don't have to. But looking good is of extreme importance, and the Prophet ﷺ said about the criteria of the good woman that will be the best enjoyment for the man in this life. التي إن نظرت إليها سرتك. If you look at her, she pleases your eyes. But does the same apply to the man? Yes, it should. Things are two ways, not just one way. That's why Abdullah ibn Abbas said, إني أحب أن أتزين للمرأة كما أحب أن تتجمل لي ذلك لأن الله يقول ولهن مثل الذي عليهن بالمعروف. Abdullah ibn Abbas said, I like to make myself handsome in front of my wife as much as I like her to beautify herself for me, because Allah says وَلَهُنَّ مِثْلُ الَّذِي عَلَيْهِنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. Allah says about women, to them are rights equal to the obligations upon them. To them are rights equal to the obligations upon them. Abdullah ibn Abbas understood from this ayah that things are reciprocal. If I want her to look good, I must look good, because to them are rights equal to the obligations upon them. وَلَهُنَّ مِثْلُ الَّذِي عَلَيْهِنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. So oftentimes you find, men in our homes They never comb their hair unless they're going out. They never dress up unless they're going out. So the wives, the most deserving ones of their good looks, they never see them in a good shape. You know, that they're just always in their pajamas. You know, their hair is scraggly and they look just scummy, and you know, and then when they're going out, that's time to actually look your best. And she only sees a glimpse of you when you're just running out the door. Anyway, so this is an important one. The third one is to be jovial and to be, you know, lighthearted about things. And, you know, it's amazing that someone of the importance of the Prophet ﷺ, the caliber of the Prophet, the integrity of the Prophet, the hayba of the Prophet ﷺ, would race with Aisha when she was just a little child. سبقت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فسبقت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فسبقته فلما حملت اللحم سبقته فسبقني فقال هذه بتلك السبقة. So I raced with the Prophet ﷺ and I beat him, and when I became a little heavier, I raced with him and he beat me, and then he said that makes us even. This one makes us even. So that is particularly important. And I understand that some people cannot be jovial because they're just by nature sort of frowny and just angry looking. But you can. Like you want to say that I'm just like this. I was born like this. I really can't be any more sort of happier looking. But why is it? I understand if you have like chronic pain, your family members will need to sort of respect that, and so they will need you, as they say, cut you a slice, or they just need to like give you some room because you have chronic pain. But if not, and it is just because you're such a busy guy, or such an important guy, or such how you go to work and your work is you work hard and all of that stuff, that's not an excuse, because no one had greater responsibilities than the Prophet ﷺ. And Abdullah ibn al-Haris radiallahu anhu said, ما رأيت أحدا أكثر تبسما من رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. I have not seen anyone who smiled more than the Prophet, than the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم. So you're not busier than him. You have no greater concerns than him. He was concerned for the entire ummah, for the entire ummah, the present of the ummah, the future of the ummah. He was concerned for humanity because he was sent to humanity. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. We have sent you but as a mercy for humanity, and not just humanity, for the worlds. العالمين. So you're not going to be more important than the Prophet ﷺ or have more concerns than the Prophet. So you can afford to smile. And if you have chronic pain all the time, and you just like, you have severe chronic pain all the time, you let your family members know, please forgive me for not being jovial enough, for not, cheering you up, because, I have chronic pain, and I'm really sorry. I wish I would have been able to cheer you up more, but because of my chronic pain, I can't. And if you do, they will believe you, and they will accommodate your condition. Physical intimacy is extremely important also for family harmony, and this is an important issue, particularly for people who come from our culture, from my culture. At home, our parents never sat next to each other because it would have been indecent. So like whenever we sat down in the living room, mom and dad, they sat across from each other, the farthest away from each other as possible, which made them all the time distant, because at home most of the time you're distant. But physical intimacy is extremely important. The Prophet ﷺ used to line up the sufuf al-salah, the rows in the prayer, and he used to, swipe on the chests of people and the backs of people, make sure that they line up, and then he would say, لا تختلفوا فتختلف قلوبكم. Don't misalign lest your hearts will be misaligned. And the Sahaba used, whenever you spread a sheet for the Sahaba, it would accommodate all of them because they sat next to each other. That intimacy, that proximity, the physical proximity brings about emotional proximity and emotional closeness and intimacy. And that should be very important for the spouses. Aisha radiallahu anha says, بئس ما عدلتمونا بالكلب والحمار. How awful is the parable you gave to us of the donkey and the dog. It's a long story. It's a hadith where, but let's not branch off. So Aisha then said, لقد رأيتني معترضة بين يدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وهو يصلي فإذا أراد أن يسجد غمز رجلي فضممتها فسجد أو كما قالت. I had seen myself across from the Prophet, lying across from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and if he wanted to, while he's praying, lying across from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in front of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, while he's praying, and whenever he wanted to prostrate, he would tap me on my leg to pull my leg so that he can prostrate. So they had a small room, but it was not that small. It was not that small to not be able to move away from him when he's praying. It was bigger than that. But it was intentional. Because when people love one another, they want to be close. They want to have this physical intimacy, this proximity. So Aisha loved the Prophet ﷺ. She wanted to be close, even though he was praying. And he did not mind because he loved her. And he wanted her to be close. So that physical intimacy has a great impact on the emotional intimacy. Also capitalizing on every opportunity to show your affection and your compassion. ومن آياته أن خلق لكم من أنفسكم أزواجا لتسكنوا إليها وجعل بينكم مودة ورحمة إن في ذلك الآيات لقوم يتفكرون. And it is of His signs that He created for you from yourselves mates to indwell with in peace and tranquility, and He put between you, or infused between you, compassion and mercy. Mawadda, compassion and mercy. Show the signs of compassion and mercy. If you want tranquility, harmony, show the signs of compassion and mercy all the time. And those are, even the little things, they matter a lot. So if you walk in late in the night and you see your spouse, your husband or your wife, uncovered, for instance, and you cover them and you tuck them in bed, and you kiss them on the forehead, you do these things while they're asleep, that, even if they didn't feel it, that is good for you. It is good practice of compassion, because you need to practice compassion to become compassionate. But if they really felt it, that will send a big message of love and compassion, and that will be much appreciated. Also, extremely important also is that you should be supportive when support is needed, not when you have free time, not when you are in a good mood. Because, if I am aching now, or I am in pain now, and you ignore me, and then you come 3 days later and say, so why were you upset the other day? Well, I'm not upset anymore, thank you. So you don't wait until you have free time or until you are in a good mood. You show support when support is needed. مثل المؤمنين في توادهم وتراحمهم وتعاطفهم كمثل الجسد الواحد إذا اشتكى منه عضو تداعى له سائر الجسد بالسهر والحمى. This is حديث النعمان بن بشير رضي الله عنه. the likeness of the believers in their compassion, mutual compassion, tawad, mutual compassion, rahma, mutual mercy for one another, وتعاطفهم, mutual sympathy for one another, كمثل الجسد الواحد, like the one body, إذا اشتكى منه عضو, when one part of the body complains or suffers, the rest of the body sympathizes. تداعى له سائر الجسد. The rest of the body sympathizes. بالسهر والحمى, by insomnia and fever. Insomnia and fever. So if your foot hurts, you know, you're not going to go to sleep and leave your foot awake. The entire body will be awake. Sahar, insomnia, will lose sleep over the pain in the foot. Wal-humma, fever. You know, it's not only your foot that will be hot or warm, it's your entire body will have fever. So the believers are like this. They are like one body. And then if, you know, your spouse is even more deserving than the other believers, then the other believers should be more deserving of your support whenever needed, not whenever you have time for it or whenever you have the right mood for it. And having said that, it is important to understand that, you know, particularly men, they need to understand that women go through the cycle, their periods and so on. And during these times, they are somewhat tense. And people just, you know, you need to understand this. And you need to allow her to be tense, because that's just a physiological thing. They become a little bit tense. And if she is tense, you should be flexible. You should be merciful. You should be compassionate. You should be supportive. You should yield. You should just give her room, and so on. And if the man also is tense because he had just come back from work and he had some trouble at work, or he's tense because he's looking for a job, or he's tense because he just had a fight with his daughter or his son, the wife should come in and comfort him at that time. And you know, and if he is too aggravated to be comforted, she should give him a little bit of room, but not leave him completely. She should be around. She should tell him, I am around whenever you need me, whenever you need to talk. I would love to talk. I would love to sort this out with you. And she should give him some room. And these things are extremely, extremely important. Dividing the burden, the equitable division of the burden, it does not have to be equal in every regard, because the burdens are different. And it is also important that we understand, like we men should understand that housework is not really much easier. It is not easier at all than whatever work you do outside. It could sometimes be much harder. Sometimes people actually run away from home because it is much easier at work than it is at home to take care of the responsibilities of home, particularly if you have like 2 little kids and you have to cook and you have to answer the phone and you have to do. The women have like a great ability at multitasking that men don't have. You know that men can only handle one task at a time. And it is also said, to be fair to men, that they would do a better job at this one task. But women can, streamline, multitask better than men. And I don't mean this in any condescending way, but secretarial jobs have been traditionally kept for women because they require a lot of multitasking. Women have the ability, to use the 2 spheres of their brain simultaneously, where men use only one side at a time, most often the left side. And they can't really handle multitasking very well. but a woman could be cooking and taking care of a child and answering the phone and, doing a couple of other things at the same time. So dividing the burden is a matter of equity. So we divide the burden equitably, whereas there is no injustice to either party. When Aisha was asked about the Prophet ﷺ at home, he said, كما يصنع أحدكم في بيته. What did the Prophet use at home? She said, كما يصنع أحدكم في بيته يرقع ثوبه ويخسف نعله. He used to do like any one of you does at his home. He would mend his garment, mend his shoes and patch up his garment. And then he would also be, في مهنة أهل بيته, he would also be at the service of his household until the time for the prayer comes in, and once the call he hears the call to the prayer, he would go out. So it is important, for us to understand, because sometimes, sometimes brothers come back from work tired, and it is understandable that you will come back tired and you will not want to be comforted and you will want to have some rest. But at the same time, if your wife has been working through, since the morning, and she is on her feet since the morning, you should be also considerate. I mean, you should not overdo it. You should not tell her, well, get me this, get me that, make me tea, do me this. If she is tired, just look at her, see if she is tired, and just stand up, walk to the kitchen, make yourself a cup of tea. Not too hard. It does not require that much skill, unless you make that tea, what is it called, chai? Yeah, then it does require much skill. No, but you get the Lipton thing, the string, and you just make it and just move on. If you're really in dire need for a cup of tea. So dividing the burden. Since we're at it, this dividing the burden, sometimes women feel insecurity because they have uncertainty about their future. There are certain newly emerging, that the world had changed in the last 200 years in ways that are unprecedented in human history. The impact of this in family dynamics is just remarkable. Isn't it true? The last 200 years have seen changes in the world that the world has not seen for 2,000 or 20,000 years. So that the impact of those changes on family dynamics is huge. So during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, women, there was scarcity of resources all around. So people were just barely fending for sustaining their families and so on. So the man is working hard and he's providing for the wife. They didn't have 401k, they didn't have retirement plans. Did they? They didn't have retirement plans. Few people had savings. Most of the people did not. Those few people who had savings, they used to give very generous dowries to their wives that they were able to keep. But in our times, if the wife decided, or if they agreed that the wife will stay home for the interest of the family, and then after 40 years of marriage, the husband just decided to divorce her, should he walk away with all the savings because it is his money? Here in America, she will get half of the savings. They'll just divide. But that's also problematic. What if they got a divorce after 2 years? She gets half of the savings. But isn't that going to discourage a lot of people from marriage? A lot of men in particular from marriage. A lot of wealthy men in particular from marriage. It will. Does Islam provide solutions for these dilemmas? Absolutely. Wallahi al-Azim, this deen is extremely viable. The vitality, the flexibility that is in this deen is just remarkable. The mujtahideen will never be stranded for means to revive and to renew the ijtihad, to suit different times. So what's the solution here? Dividing is not prescribed. Well, there are a couple of solutions. One is a judicial solution. So this is at the time of conflict, after separation. What the Islamic judiciary could do is that we could employ the concept of mut'ah. Keep in mind that the concept of mut'ah, in some of the madhahib, mut'ah is only for women who have not had their marriage consummated and who have not had a dowry designated. But in some of the madhahib, mut'ah is for all divorcees, And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, that's the apparent implication of the ayah, وَالْمُطَلَّقَاتِ مَتَاعٌ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ حَقًّا عَلَى الْمُتَّقِينَ, and for the divorced women a provision according to the customs, according to bil-ma'ruf, according to the customs or the current customs, حَقًّا عَلَى الْمُتَّقِينَ, a due right upon the muttaqeen. It's a right upon the muttaqeen. It's an obligation. It's a right for women upon the God-fearing men. It's an obligation on God upon God-fearing men to give them a provision. If we employ this concept, make it sizable and commensurate with the duration of marriage and the socioeconomic status of the family, that's the solution. So you come to the a panel of mashayikh, and you say that we are now having this divorce, and if by mutual agreement you decide between yourselves to seek arbitration, the laws of the land would allow you to do this by mutual agreement. It is understood that if anyone is not satisfied with whatever arbitration they got, it is understood in the laws of the land that they will seek judgment from the courts of the land, and that will be enforceable. Whatever we say at the masjid is not enforceable. But if they mutually agree, then who would say to them, you can't mutually agree? It's between the two of them. So if they mutually agree and they come to the mashayikh, and the mashayikh come up with like a reasonable resolution. Because when you say to her, you have nothing, just 40 years of marriage, ربنا يعينك, may Allah help you. It is hard, and it will cause her fitna and her deen, and it may tempt her to just to completely ignore what you're saying and to seek help elsewhere. But if you come up with a reasonable resolution, that could be accepted mutually by the two of them. Dividing the burden is important. So if you're going to be both working, that is in case she will stay home, and that is what we can do from our side. But from the side of the spouses, why don't you give her all of that insecurity and uncertainty about the future? Why wouldn't you be putting some money in her bank account also? If you're saving for your future, save for her future at the same time. Put some here and some there. It doesn't have to be half and half, whatever you guys agree on. But just don't make her feel insecure, uncertain about the future. Does that make sense? Isn't that generous? Isn't that kind, compassionate? Wallahi, it is. It makes perfect sense. If she decided to stay home to serve the family, if they agreed that it is in the best interest of the family that she stays home, then she also wants security for her future, some financial security for her future. And if she decided to go out and work, then it would not make then we would say that the man is still responsible. The man is still responsible for supporting the family. But is that fair? It is fair. The man is still responsible because we can't change the design, the grand design of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We can't say the man is not responsible for his wife, the wife is responsible for her husband. But at the same time, Allah did not say that they cannot mutually agree on fair distribution of the burden. If she would go out and work, and if she is like a pharmacist or something, and she makes twice as much as he does, should we force him to accept of her to go out every day, and that takes her away from the household, from her obligations towards the family, so that she would be making money and saving it, and he's spending all of his money on the family, and he's coming back home and not finding his wife because she has like a late shift and he has to make dinner, and she is just like putting all of the money in her bag. It doesn't make sense. So we have, renewal does not always mean accommodating societal pressure. So it is not that we should always be hard on the man, because that is not justice. That is not fairness. This deen is all about fairness. We have to use reasoning and we have to use logic. In this case, the man will say to the wife, if you really want to go out and work, then you may want to contribute this much to the family. And once you decide, once you say to me, I quit, I don't want to work anymore, I resign, then the minute you say that, I will be completely responsible, because I'm responsible, and I have to support my family. So the equitable division of the burden is extremely important, because without that, all of the stuff that we said before, being jovial, smiling, being supportive, and all of that, without equal division of the burdens, it's just not going to work. The last thing is basically the etiquette of the discussion, and we said that the foundation of the family in Islam is what? Sakina, and the wings are mawadda and rahma, compassion and mercy. Why are compassion and mercy are the two wings? Because you need compassion in circumstances different from mercy. Allah said, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ سُورَةَ الرُّومِ وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُم مَّوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Of His signs that He creates for you from yourselves mates to dwell with in tranquility, to have comfort in them, comfort and tranquility. وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُم مَّوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً, and He instilled between you mawadda, compassion, وَرَحْمَة, mercy. When do you need mawadda, compassion? In times of harmony. When do you need mercy? In times of disharmony. You need mercy, you need to be merciful. Even though you're resentful, even though you're angry, you need to be merciful. So you're either using compassion, that is in times of harmony, or mercy in times of disharmony. But you're not going any less than mercy. Mawadda is more than mercy. You should be merciful to all people, right? You should be merciful to all people. You should be merciful to all creation. You should be merciful to mice. Even when you kill a mouse, you should be merciful. You don't kill them like a long death or like a painful. You should be merciful to all people and all creation. But you don't have to show affection to the mouse. When you kill. Well, you don't have to show affection to all creation. So mawadda is above mercy. Mawadda is when things are right between the two of you, when there is harmony. So mawadda, mercy, But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا. That tranquility should be there all the time. Whether it's bad times, good times, there should be tranquility. There should be peace. There should be comfort in that relationship for the two spouses. They should be able to find comfort in this relationship. Having said that, etiquettes of discussion are extremely important for us to learn. See, when we talked today about in the khutbah about this verse from Servitude, verse number 74. Who's here? In the second khutbah? No one was here. Okay. So it's just like a beautiful verse, and I'm not going to repeat the second khutbah for sure. I don't have time for that. But you know, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about Ibrahim, when the angels went to Ibrahim and the angels told Ibrahim that we would go and destroy the people of Lut, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَلَمَّا ذَهَبَ عَنْ إِبْرَاهِيمَ الرَّوْعُ وَجَاءَتْهُ الْبُشْرَى يُجَادِلُنَا فِي قَوْمِ لُوطٍ إِنَّ إِبْرَاهِيمَ لَحَلِيمٌ أَوَّاهٌ مُنِيبٌ. فَلَمَّا ذَهَبَ عَنْ إِبْرَاهِيمَ الرَّوْعُ, when fright had left Ibrahim, وَجَاءَتْهُ الْبُشْرَى, and glad tidings had come to him. Glad tidings of what? Having Ishaq. Glad tidings of having a boy. The angels, you know, took the fright away from him by telling him, don't worry, we're angels. We were sent to destroy the people of Lut. We will not cause you, will not hurt you, will not cause you any harm. That is when he felt, you know, worried. فَلَمَّا رَأَى أَيْدِيَهُمْ لَا تَصِلُ إِلَيْهِ نَكِرَهُمْ أَوْجَسَ مِنْهُمْ خِيفَةً قَالُوا لَا تَخَفْ إِنَّا أُرْسِلْنَا إِلَى قَوْمِ لُوطٍ. So when they comforted him, ذهب عن إبراهيم الروع وجاءته البشرى يجادلنا في قوم لوط. He started arguing with us about concerning the people of Lut. Ibrahim is doing what? Arguing with us. Who's speaking? Allah. Keep in mind, arguing here means pleading, invoking, imploring. He's pleading with us to spare the people of Lut. Pleading with us to spare the people of Lut. But still, Ibrahim presented a counter-argument, and Allah called it an argument. Allah called it jidal. يُجَادِلُنَا فِي قَوْمِ لُوطٍ. Yet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what is really beautiful here is that the next verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not say Ibrahim, you know, or his judgment failed him, or something of that nature. No, he said, إِنَّ إِبْرَاهِيمَ لَحَلِيمٌ أَوَّاهٌ مُنِيبٌ. Most verily, Ibrahim is forbearing. Awwa, Halim. Awwa comes from awwa. It's the, you know, the word that you say when you have, like when you're in pain. The voice that you make when you're in pain. Awwa, it's like ouch. It's like I, if you're from Egypt, whatever other words people use when they're in pain. So the one who says awwa a lot is called awwa, which means that, okay. So we'll stop here. قولي هذا استغفر الله لي ولكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك.